Hello and thank you for clicking in. This is Nils from 𝗤𝗂 𝗧𝗵𝗲. I would like to show you within a real example on one of my song mix how you can organize and route your tracks in your DAW. This is a more complete overview of one of my sessions and completes my routing series. If you are entirely new into mixing or recording, then it might be very helpful that you watch at first my routing series to get a better understanding what I will show you inside this video. We will take a closer look at the order of my single tracks and how I route all the tracks inside the sessions. And that is for me a quite bigger session, so I have more than enough examples to show you. I will give you an overview how I route single tracks to track groups before they hit the subgroups. Also how the subgroups are routed to the main summing bus. Then of course an insight on the aux channel routing for the effects inside the subgroups, and the last routing part from the main summing bus to other different buses. I will show you how I use VCA channels and how I have set up my listen back channels and why and how I do stem recording as a backup function for the whole session. All in all, at the end, you should have a good overview how you can implement all these steps into your own recording or mixing setup. Then you will have a better overview how to navigate faster through your sessions, mix with more time on the fun part, and create at the end a better mix on your own. For that video show-off, I will show you my routing on a working example inside the DAW. This is Pro Tools in this example. This song is called Fairytale of You, and this is my session layout on most of my songs. I do 99% handmade music. So this is quite a bigger song with 54 audio tracks, a mix of mono and stereo sources. And of course they are not play together all the time, but the count of the tracks, it's a bigger session on my side. Then we also have 14 effect aux tracks and some other routing tracks. I have usually the following section of, I call it subgroups. Here are the drums, then we have bass guitar, then we have the other guitars and some other instruments, and the vocals. Then the VCA channels, the Pro Tools 2-track summing channel, my listening tracks, and the stems. And I call these 5 subgroups. You could name them also main groups or whatever. I use subgroups to route specific instrument groups like the drums to one bus and to that channel or to that folder, and other instruments like the guitars to their own and the vocals to their own. If I have 2 audio tracks like recorded overhead from drums where you have 2 mono sources, the left and the right, then I can route them to track groups before they hit the bus of the group. So this is my definition. I call this the subgroups, just to make clear for you if you are watching this clip at the first one of mine. We just start from left to right, and for that reason I change over to the mixing window. So we will have a closer look to the session from the left to the right, to the end, or to the stems. And I come from making live music years ago, and I typically have that band setting in mind. So that's the reason why I start with the drums. When you stay in front of the stage and look at the stage, then most of the time the drummer sits behind or others, and beside or in front of him or her there's the bass guitar player, and then I have the guitars that stands a bit in the middle of stage or even in front, but most of the time in front are the vocals. And if I have other instruments that are not guitars, then I put them between the guitars and the vocals. You might have a different order, and that's totally fine. You just should have the order that works for you at best. At best, with a system that you can rebuild in most of your sessions. Then you will have a better overview and work faster, or need less time in the navigation and have more time on the fun part of mixing your song. And there is no right or wrong. It doesn't matter what I tell you or show you or what others will tell you. It is much more important that you find your order or your system that you can navigate faster through your session. That's the best tip I can give you. Okay, let's start from left to right with the drums. For my subgroups, I use the in Pro Tools called routing folders. And when I click here, it opens up all the tracks that are inside the folder and routed over the bus to that folder input. And let me show you, these guys are the whole drum set, and all of them are routed over the bus to the input of that folder. And because we have a routing folder, we have that nice option that we can say solo the whole group. So we have all what's inside the group, and solo and or other is muted. And we can of course solo just one track, and that is also play through without to have a solo save like we have to do it on the aux track if they don't should get muted when you solo a track. Inside the drum subgroup, I have also the effects, and I use effect tracks specific for that group. We have in the digital domain enough possibilities to have enough effect tracks. I don't want to make it too complicated for myself, but most of the time I have around these 10 up to 15 auxiliary tracks for the effect parts. And here I have a drum room effect, I have a drum plate effect, and a gated delay or gated reverb, how I set that up. And I can use on all of them just the send and route that as example to the drum group, and then I have the aux track or the bus accessible on all of them to route that to the drum room aux track. And as I said, these are also routed to the drums. So I have full control over the whole drum set with effects on that single fader. I most of the time use also insert on that group, like a compressor, EQ, tape effect, and that's very handy to have full control over there. Okay, let's check out what's going on inside the bass guitar group. There's not much going on. Sometimes I have an amped bass guitar track where we mic'd up a real analog amp with a speaker. And when I do that, I typically record also the DI signal from the bass guitar. So I have two tracks, and you probably said you don't need to have a group, but I like to use that as a group as well, even if I just one track, just for my understanding. When I look only at the groups, it is helpful to have here a bass subgroup as well. But sometimes, as you can see, I've already set up an aux track. This is the bass distortion track, so I can bring in here and plug in with a distortion effect and mix that track to the track without the distortion effect. You can do this, of course, with a plugin that have a mixing knob on that main track from the bass guitar. But I like to have that on a fader. It's just, for me, it's more flexible and have more better feeling just with to have the mouse and the pod of a mixing control. So this is just a simple example of the routing from 2 tracks to a subgroup. Let me close the drums and the bass guitar so we can have a look at the guitars. And as you can see, we have some mono sources, and here are stereo sources, but that are not stereo recorded. These stereo tracks come through. I have set up a plug-in inside that mono track that converts it to a stereo one, because I would like to have some stereo effect on that. But here's another example, and this goes on these bows. Let me close this. That's better. So we have here 2 guitar tracks, and this is verse A, verse B. It's the same guitar but recorded with 2 microphones, and I mixed that and bring that over the guitar group guitar 1 bus to that one. And here I have set up a stereo. It hits mono and it's stereo because I have also here a stereo plug in, and I mix these both channels to that track, and I have control over that one. Here I have set up mixing groups, so if I want to have it with more volume into the channel, I have linked these both together. I use for that routing also a routing folder and have the same flexibility to have here solo, and I can hear both of them, or I can solo just them single if I don't have the mixing group active. It's very handy to have that, and I can bring in here just one. Let's say we use here the guitar room for that one. I don't have to put on each of them the aux send. I just have that on the group, and when I'm happy with that sound just with the fader, then I close the folder and do all what I want to do on that track group folder. And it's pretty handy to have that. If you have numerous guitars records, you can bounce them to just one channel, but this is just easy at that, so you don't have to look at all the single mic tracks. And it's the same like in the other groups. I have here set up my effect channels: mono delay, guitar room effect, and verb effect. I have presets for that I can load them in and use them. Then the sound that I need for that song. Sometimes I just change the plugin when I want to try another one, or just need some other effects for that song. But I don't have more than 5 or 6 effect tracks for the guitars, and all are routed over the group bus to that channel, and I have here the whole control on the guitars. Now let's dive into the instruments that are the other instruments. We have some synth effects here. We have an organ, strings, trumpets, and again, here is just one aux track. And this is what I use most of the time in instrument verb. Some instruments have already some room effects on that. These are most of the time not real instruments. When I produce, I don't have or that instrument, or can't play that instrument. I don't have strings set up right here, so I use some virtual instruments. Sometimes when I have a trumpet player and I can record real trumpet, but I use just one instrument verb, sometimes another room effect to give the more organic sound. I keep that, I try to keep that as simple as possible. And all instruments tracks goes to that group, and I have them in that routing folder as well. And last but not least, the vocals. And this is a bigger setup in that session. And here's a good example I want to show you. We have here the main vocals that goes to that vocal bus. And here is an older setup. This is an aux track. This is not a routing folder. And there's the solo save active, so that I can solo the backing vocals itself to hear them and don't have to activate solo on that aux track. But this is an older setup, as I said, and I would like to convert that to a routing folder. So this is not just an aux track. And in Pro Tools, I can just make a right click on that and convert aux to routing folder. And then it gets a routing folder. We don't have to have the solo save button active. And now the routing of the backing tracks is still active to that one, but I want to bring that into that folder. Just move that over there. Now it's in the folder, and I can just bring it down to folder view and can open that as well. And here is many vocals going on in the backing, and we also have a core. And here's already a routing folder. Is another folder, another tracks of some core. All these core tracks are routed over bus to that folder, the core group. So I have typically that one in the routing, in the vocal routing folder. I can bring out these and have here also my core group. And on the core group, it's just easy. I bring the fader to that level I would like to have it. I pan them, and then I do all my compression, all the EQ just on that channel. I save time on the mixing because I don't need to work on all that single tracks. I can use that on that group. If there's a problem on one of the recorder, of course, then I need to go deeper into one channel and filter maybe some unwanted noise, or pull back some make frequencies. But I can just work on that track, and it's save up time and bring in the sound. Also, I can use here just one aux send. I don't need to have an aux send because they are in a core group. They sing all together, and the effect and the sound should sound that they sing all together at one place. And as you can see, I work with coloring the tracks. So I just look at that and know, okay, these have the same blueprint, and I know that they sing in the specific part together with just the color effect. Here's the core, all have the same color. I think coloring is an important part if you want to have a fast visual overview of what's going on in your session, and that will help to see right what's going on with what track. If you look at that, all my vocals are some blue coloring, and the core is just tiny of green coloring. So I see exactly what type of vocal it is without reading. And on the vocal, or for the vocals, I have most of the time these 5 effects. Let's start with the vocal plate effect, vocal delay, vocal room, and the vocal verb. The verb I use most for the backings. And then I have another dimension effect that gives them a bit more of attention to the main vocals, and I just most of the time I use it in the chorus for the main vocals to fill them a bit more with more body, and then I don't have to do nothing more on the main vocals, just bring in the send on the dimension, and that's most of the time fine for me. Okay, these are the 5 subgroups I have, and all of them are routed to the 𝗔𝗯ance Pro Tools 2-track, and that comes in on that track. And now you might ask, what about the VCAs? Yes, I have VCAs, and I have them set up typically for these 5 groups: drums, bass, guitar, instrument, and vocals. And let me show you this on the drums. So this is the drum set, and I can control the whole sound of the drum set just with one fader. But with that fader, I just control the whole signal, what is post inside. And what if I want to control the drum set before it hits the bus, before it goes into the EQ, before it goes into the compressor? Therefore, I could create a mixing group and link all the channels. I create a group, mix, and globals, volume is active. Okay, and then I have to activate the groups, and now I have the whole drum set linked together. But I just can't do that without that. Let me delete this. I can create a VCA group and have here the VCA channel, and can move all the faders with the VCA and be independent of what's going on here. I like that more than linking or creating many mixing groups or link faders together. I just have that VCA if I need that. Sometimes I use it in a rough mix situation to pull all the drums down, or I just do some automation on that. It really depends. Most of the time I create the sound or the volume I like from the group and have here the control over that. Let's come back to the 2-track. Here's the 2-track, the summing bus. I call that 2-track because that's the final stereo track that will be summed together from all the other groups, all routed to that one. And here on that channel I can do my hardware inserts I like to use for my outboard compressor. In Pro Tools you can set up that hardware insert goes out of the interface to the compressor, and from the compressor back to the interface and back to that channel itself. And on my Pro Tools 2-track I like to use, of course, some tape effects or another compression or whatever the song needs on the 2-track, and from there I route what's coming from the 2-track to different paths. And here you can see there are 3 different paths. One is the Pro Tools 2-track where I re-record the whole mix. Then I have a listen bus and a 2 bounce output. And these I want to show you. At first we have here the listen bus. This is the main listen bus where I listen to my monitor outputs, to my Mergent Anubis interface. There I hear the sound of my speakers. And when I want to listen on my headphones, I just mute that and have the same goes out to my Anubis, but I have here another plugin that emulates a speaker set. So I like to hear that as well in my headphones. I can deactivate that, but I just like to have that on a button to mute that. It's for me, it's faster than to go in and bypass this. So I have that one. On my listen channel, I also have a stream plugin to my iPhone where I can then listen from my iPhone to my AirPods to have a quick listen how it sound on AirPods or on different set of headphones. And the routing from there goes also to the 2-track rack. And here I record the whole mix, post, insert, post what's going on that channel. If I have here the hardware compressor or another plug-in, all the processing is recorded on that track. But for some reason, I do another, or I record at the same time the clean mix. So all the summing of these that goes to the Pro Tools 2-track, I record as I call it, the mix is the clean mix without the processing of the 2-track. Just within the whole final recording of the 2-track, I record this simultaneously and have the mix as a separate file to master it in a different session. When I just want to remaster a song or whatever I'd like to do, I have a clean mix without what's going on the 2-track. It's very helpful for me in the past, and I would say if you can do that routing in your DAW as well, do that. You have a clean mix. You don't know when you can use that if you want to remaster an album or put some songs together that are not meant to be as an EP or album, but you want to give a special edition or something like that, and then you can bring all the clean mix together and master them as a whole album. And I have also a bounce track, and because I use hardware instead, I can't bounce offline. I need to record or bounce out in real time. So when I want to have a quick bounce to take that with me, to have that on my phone when I do a walk and want to check or in the car, I can bounce over the channel and I don't have to mute any of that plugin that's on my listen bus. I have here a clean bounce out that comes from the 2-track, or I set that from here as well and say, okay, please give me that what I've re-recorded and bounced that out. That's very fast. On the bounce track, I have all my metering plugins that I use when I do recording or mixing. Just some different plugins I like to use, so I don't have to move them around. They just sit there and I can have them in place when I want them. Here's another main monitor path. I typically don't touch this because this will affect all the output. I have the control on my Merchant Anubis interface. If you have an interface that has no volume control or you can't reach it, then it's helpful to have that fader on your side. But I don't use it, but I've set that up and it's fine. Last but not least, we have the stem folder. And when I finish a mix, I'm happy with the mastering. I have did the revision and maybe I've changed for the last thing. And when I have recorded the last thing, I do a last recording stage, and this is the stem recording. And herefore, I set up stereo audio tracks to record all what's coming from these guys. For that reason, I do that one. I make here another output and go to the stems, and then I record where's the fader, a post fader, and that's important because if I would rec that pre-fader or even pre-insert, I don't have the same sound. So when you record that, and let's say we have that kind of fader setting and record on these stems, you will have that volume what's after the fader. And when you bring them together to the Pro Tools 2-track, these should sound identically to these. So you have a clean version without the processing of the 2-track. And if you want to do a remix, you have all the processing inside. You don't have to recall the whole session. You just have these 5 stereo tracks and can do some changes from the groups. But if you want to make a deeper change, maybe just only on the guitars, you just bring up all of these without the stems and bring in the guitar group as well and do the change. You might say, yeah, then I can bring in the whole session. Yes, you could that, but what if you have used plugins years ago that you don't even have anymore, or they just don't work anymore on your system? Maybe you pull up that song that's 10 years old. You have that files and you can bring in any other sources and mix or remix that again. This is just more for me for a backup situation to have that stems again, and it's just one recording after the last bounce. You can also bounce them out in your DAW as you would like to do it. I like to just re-record them and then it's fine. So I hope this insight was interesting for you, that you can take something out of it to bring into your own session routing. And if you have any following question, please leave me a comment or come to my website, 𝗣𝗢𝗜𝗂𝗧𝗵𝗲.com. There you can find a contact form and send me your question. And if you want to get more insight, then have a look at my channel on that YouTube channel. And I'm happy to make more videos for you. So thanks for your time. Stay tuned and bye-bye.